All right. Hello, folks. Today is November 9th, 2020. This is the Network Policy API subproject. Go ahead, Jay, with the agenda.
Okay, everybody. Let me see here. I'm about to share my screen. Okay. We got a lot going on, even though there's not a lot of people here today. So we have the caps. We have Zhang and Abhishek might have something on the cluster scoped. Okay. Ricardo's not here, so maybe we skip this. Then Dan had a cap, and then there's an interesting ambiguity that was brought up recently that Matt Fenwick is looking into that I think we should discuss at the end. Whatever. So for my stuff, it's gotten a lot simpler, and I have just kind of where is it? Mine is let me pull it up. Hold on one second. Yeah, mine is. Does everybody see my Sublime editor now? Where did I converge on this? Namespace selector allow, I think, is where we ended up. And the reason I called it namespace selector allow is because namespace selector is an overloaded term. Tim Hawkins suggested not doing that thing where we change the or what did he suggest? Yeah, he suggested adding this into ingress from and so mine's gotten pretty simple. I just think it needs to just bake for a while. Like, I'm not super concerned about it. It's not as complicated as it was. We're not doing the filtering out namespaces, but anybody who wants to kind of update that or PR to it or push to it is kind of welcome to or comment on it or whatever if you want to implement any changes. I'm just kind of letting it bake for a while we work through whatever's left on port range and so on. So I don't really have any status there. I don't have. I was thinking about maybe trying to compile it and test it anyways, just to play around with the API, but kind of want to pair up with someone who's good at API stuff because I got other things going on to do that. But that's pretty much where I'm at. Port range, Ricardo's stuff. I mean, he's not here, so I guess we can just do next week, right? There's no point in trying to figure out where he's at on his stuff. I mean, I think he's pretty far along. I think it's just getting hardened, and I assume, that process will go on for a little while. Cluster scoped. Zhang, do y'all have anything?
Abhishek is here, so probably we could also move it to next week. We have
I just joined. Sorry, I missed.
Oh, you're here.
There he is. What's up, Abhishek?
Go ahead.
Sorry, what was the question? I just joined.
I'll write you a little note in this. Oh, I don't know. You all have anything for us on this?
Yeah,
we skipped Ricardo because he didn't come today.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, he's in trouble.
So we, I think, as a team, we've fine-tuned the initial proposal that we had, and I think with the present proposal that we agreed upon, there's a good consensus and we have a good feeling about it. So we are going to, run that particular proposal with different use cases and see, whether, what we have solves all the use cases that we intend to solve, and then maybe add, a few more parameters to it, thinking about negation of namespaces, or like how to write isolated namespaces policies more efficiently. So a little minor improvements on top of this. And once we have a a proper proposal, I think the core of the proposal is pretty much agreed upon. Once we have a complete proposal, we'll come here and talk about it.
Cool. That's really cool. All right. So, I mean, just curious. So, like on the CNI side, like, do you feel like how much of that could, like, how much of do you think the cluster scoped policy is stuff that CNI providers already implement, and how much of it do you think is like new?
So I think most of the CNI providers, maybe not most, at least a few of the popular ones have their own CRDs for cluster scope policies. So they, in some fashion, do have a solution for the cluster scope policies. This proposal will just, bring it in upstream, standardize it across all the CNIs, and
So there's no new stuff that you're adding that isn't already, people aren't already doing it somewhere.
it's not going to be radically new. It's just going to solve the use cases in upstream Kubernetes.
Okay. Is there anything new at all? I'm just curious. I don't care one way or the other. I'm just wondering, like, is there anything like totally new that nobody's doing yet?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But the spec will be slightly different than what the existing CNI providers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like I think what we are converging towards is a non-priority based spec.
No priority?
No,
You found a way to do cluster scoped with no priorities?
Yeah, no explicit priorities.
What? Wow.
So
what are you doing in the lab over there that allowed you to figure that out?
Come join us, man.
Are you all just like a lot? Are you just really smart or what?
Thursdays, 10:30 a.m. Pacific.
Oh man.
To find more.
You guys are too smart for me. Okay. That's cool. Well, thanks, Abhishek and Zhang. That's cool. Zhang, do you have anything else on that, or is that pretty much it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Is Abhishek telling the truth that you all figured out a way to do it without priorities?
we have one proposal. We are still need to work on the user stories to see if that covers all, at least the majority of use cases. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if y'all can do that. I'd be interested to see if that's just really interesting. I'm interested to see what it winds up looking like. But this is really cool. So when do we get to see your all's proposal, you think? Like a couple of weeks from now?
I think if you are curious, you can look at our meeting notes. And
yeah.
You are very welcome for any comments and so on if you like, right?
I mean, I'm moderately, I'm curious enough to see it. I'm curious enough about looking it up. You know what I mean? Like, when are you all going to show it to the group? Like, when do you think it'll be polished enough to share it with SIG Network, I guess is the question.
I think I will still need some, maybe 1 or 2 more weeks. Abhishek, how do you think?
Yeah, I think before going to SIG Network, we probably want to do and get an approval, or rather an agreement with this group first.
Yeah, and Yang is here too, so Yang could show his opinion. How far away?
Yeah, I feel like the CRD sort of like a spec makes sense to me right now. So we'll probably need to work a little bit on sort of crafting some use cases that can be solved explicitly with this new cluster network policy. And then with that, we can present it to this group and see, if those use cases make sense, and it makes sense to everybody that the cluster network policy, that kind of spec can actually solve this, and also ask people that, if they have specific use cases they want to solve with the cluster network policy in mind, where can our sort of proposal capture it? And I feel like that after that it should be pretty much in a good shape.
Okay, cool. So you're just hardening it then. That's cool. FQDN, I don't know. Andrew, you're working on that, right?
Nope, I'm not. I definitely have strong opinions about it, but I'm not working on that. Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for Gobin to put something together, but I'm more than willing to put a spec together or something if if Gobin doesn't have cycles, or
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where he is. Was he here last week?
Yeah.
What? It was Ricardo's here and he got a haircut.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Got some
Oh,
weird
this
shape.
changes everything. Okay. All right. Well, Ricardo,
I can reach out to Gobin and see what we could put together.
okay. I mean, yeah. Okay, cool. I was just curious if, no pressure. I mean, I don't know if it's just going to wait for a little while, that's fine. I was just wondering if anyone's actively working on it. Andrew will reach out. I know Rich is kind of interested in it, but I think he's busy with other stuff anyways, though. So it's probably easier to just keep it with Gobin for now.
The major discussion about this FKDN proposal was if this was going to be part of network policy or if this was going to be like a new DNS policy, right?
No, I think so. I think where we have agreement on it at the moment, at least, is that we want the policy to be expressed in a separate API or a separate resource, probably under the existing networking API group. But it's a matter of like how the policy is enforced, whether you resolve the FQDN and then translate that into network policy resources, or whether the thing resolving the DNS should actually just enforce the policy like at the DNS server level. And so I feel strongly that like the DNS server, like core DNS or kubedns, should read the resource and do the actual policy enforcement. I don't think we need to involve like out of band network policies for that enforcement, but I think we need to get agreement on that.
Cool. What else is going on here? Thanks, Andrew. I know you got a lot going on. Big shout out to Andrew. He's babysitting and working at the same time today. So let me see here. I don't see any like unresolved stuff. I see Ricardo's written some stuff here, but it sounds like it sounds like everything kind of is in that one category of how do we figure out a way to do something related to this? Because it's so big and it has 100 different possible solutions that are all going to work. And I think the hard thing is figuring out who cares about it enough to actually do something, like build something, because I feel like there's like 5 different ways to solve the problem. And, so the first thing that someone builds, I think, that solves this in a somewhat CNI independent kind of way would be kind of cool. But it sounds like the easiest is the core DNS plugin thing, but I don't know. What do you got?
I feel like the core DNS plugin is definitely going to be involved. It's just a matter of whether the plugin like does the actual rejection of the resolution, or if it just creates network policies, right?
Yeah, what I mean is that the one where it just does everything seems like the easiest way to like get people's attention. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like so that people are forced to make a decision one way or other. So I don't know, if I had like infinite amount of time, I think it would be so much fun to hack on that project. If anybody has a friend that's like looking for something to do, I think this would just be the coolest project. Like, so anyways, we got, Dan has a cap. So I was really happy that Dan made a KEP because I didn't know he was working on the network policy stuff anymore, but then he made a KEP about it today. So, which is about namespace status, which we've been bringing this up for years. Andrew brought it up last time we talked, I think. And I think we brought it up about a year ago when we were initially proposing the new validation policy stuff, because that was a huge thing when we started looking at the matrix of all the connections. And I think people have even brought it up before that. And so like his one is, and then we've got this other issue that came up today. Is that it, Andrew? Thanks, Ricardo. Ricardo, I thought you were going to be in trouble because you didn't come today. I was like, kind of.
Yeah, I was in trouble, but I figured it out to leave earlier the meeting.
So I left just a bunch of question comments, the type of questions you leave when you don't fully read something. So you ask quickly ambiguous question. So like, and he clarified it, but like my understanding of this whole thing is that this allows you to have this slippery, in my mental model, kind of a slippery, but also very well defined kind of adherence to the API, because you can, he wants to introduce these kind of meta semantics around, minimum versions. So
yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, this just feels kind of meta to me. Like I feel like someone in API machinery is going to have something to say about this, but go on. Go on.
So how is this distinct from feature gates?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the idea here from then, for what I've read already, but I didn't read the whole document also, was like you can this min version you can specify what kind of, it's kind of a feature gate, but only for network policy. Like I am not going to accept in my, even if I have the support in my API server of the SCTP protocol, I don't want to accept earlier versions from the network policy. To be honest, this part of the min version from the network policy was pretty foggy for me. But the other parts of the KEP is really nice, because what Dan is proposing is like that we treat network policies like as a pod or as a node, and they might have status. So the CNI can report the status from a network policy by Dan proposal here, if the policy was enforced or not, if you have like some sort of warning because you have specified the network policy with that problem from the IB/mask not being not covering the covering the whole network, and you don't want to cover the whole network. So it's a, as far as I've read, it's a really interesting to have to take a look, because that's a, I think that you might also have the ability to define if a network policy is applied or not, and this might probably be used in the future by some readiness gate from the pods also. And this is a problem when you have like a huge environment with a lot of network policies, and you need to wait that network policy to be applied either. So that's
yeah. Like I'm not opposed to status. Like I think like Jay mentioned, I think there's a good chunk of use cases for why network policy should have status. But yeah, like it's the whole min version thing is interesting, because it's not clear to me if is that min version something the CNI sets? Like isn't min version like redundant based on what the API server validates? Like if a API server rejects it, like you're on the wrong, like you're not in the min version, right? Or is it more of like CNI is reporting what features are allowed based on the version? I should probably just read the KEP at this point.
Yeah, it's so hard there's so much to read, in any KEP, right? So I don't know. I think it's fine to talk through it. Like let's just take a second to read this part.
Probably need a min version field for min version, right? That was a joke.
No, yeah, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying though. It's like kind of meta, right? Like it could just be, there's no end to this, right? So but I'm assuming Dan, he knows a lot more about the API than I do. So I feel like he must have thought through this, right? Like, but once you, yeah, you're right. Like currently the highest allowed value is 1.12, corresponding to policy API is defined 1.12. So you create a new spec, and then your CNI provider looks at that spec and says, oh, well, I'm only compatible up to blah. So I'm not going to even bother with this. But if it's looks at the spec and it's compatible with it, so in that case, it would probably, you know, when it saw that, I guess it would leverage this unsupported. Isn't there an unsupported field? So that would allow your CNI provider to say, you know, unsupported. Whereas if, for example, I mean, I guess if it was like on the same version as the version of the policy, and then it read the policy and it didn't know what to do with it, then it would maybe use the problem field, you know, because that's another, or like the warning field or something. But then again, I think Dan was saying the warning field is more for ambiguous cases. I don't know. I guess this makes me wonder what happens, what is the status of a policy that a provider could not apply because the API seemed incompatible? How is that conveyed through this? That's the question that I would have then. And then enforcing was another question I had, because enforcing is weird to me. Tell me if, okay, so keep me honest here. So I was going back and forth. So like we went into this enforcing versus readiness thing. And then this was an interesting thing because it's like, well, how do you really know that you're enforcing the policy, right? Because you could have made an IP tables rule, but what if there's a bug in IP tables or a CVE comes out? You don't really know that you're enforcing a policy. You only know that you have, to the best of your abilities, like done some reconciliation with the underlying operating system or with some network provider to create rules which you think will enforce the policy. And so the reason why I think this is not just kind of a bike sheddy thing is that like the whole idea of readiness is the opposite concept. Because to me, readiness is a phenomenological thing, right? You don't really care whether there's a policy or not. You just know you can get to the pod. And so readiness seems like a weird word to use when it comes to this, because it has an overload with the pod readiness concept, which we all know as, yes, I can access an endpoint. And so I was kind of like confused about, like, I understand what this enforcing thing does, but I don't understand how, I'm not sure it wouldn't confuse people to have to deal with pod readiness in the context of network policies.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing is that we're introducing like 2 layers of versioning. Like we have the API versioning, like V1 alpha 1, you know, beta V1, and then like we have to then inspect the internal type of that API and reason about which fields are added in which version. So there's going to be like code all over the validation logic that says like, you know, if the API server is not this version, then drop this field or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So I'm not the person to critique the API because I'm just not an API person. I'm real bad at API stuff. But if anybody knows more about the API and wants to look at that and help really harden this proposal around that, that would be cool. I just feel like, you know, from my perspective, which is like the thing I'm real interested in is like validating and comparing the different CNIs. Like, I think it would be really cool to have any metadata. So even if some of this metadata is logically inconsistent or whatever, I don't care. I'm all for it, right? But if maybe at some point I can try to learn more about the API and then evaluate it in that context too, you know. But yeah, like if anybody really like, yeah, somebody let's help Dan really harden this KEP. Like this would be really cool because having some status, even if we don't have this min version thing, would still be cool. And anyone else want to talk about this at all? Abhishek, what do you think? So you're a CNI person. Like what, like, have you ever considered implementing some version of network policy status in Antrea?
Not a version. We do have status field in the network policy in Antrea, but I have not gone through this KEP, so I have no comments on the KEP as of yet.
Cool.
Perhaps next week, maybe, or I'll try to add some comments on the KEP itself.
Yeah, can you go through it this week? Just, you know, just like to really, that way next week maybe we can cool, thanks. Well, Ricardo, anything else?
From this KEP, I don't think so. I'm gonna take a look also tomorrow, take some time to read it. But
hey, sorry, Jay, I got to drop, man. I'll sync up with you sometime tomorrow if possible.
No problem.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we'll be around, Marino. See ya.
See ya.
Okay.
do you want to move to the issue that you posted? What about that issue? I didn't saw.
This is an interesting one. Matt was working on this issue. I don't know if Chris is here today. Chris isn't here today. Chris, where's Chris? Okay. So he was looking at this one, and I mean, I think it's close to resolved, but I just thought it's an interesting thing to discuss because I'm not sure.
I need to take some time to read it. Yeah.
Yeah, the issue is this is the policy. So you know what? At the very least, we can add this to our validation stuff. Some kind of a test that, you know, that makes a 0000 IP at block and then tries to accept something from it, and just see how this works. I mean, my first case would be literally I'll just try to generify this and then see what happens when we look at, you know, the connectivity. But this is the policy that someone created, and they're saying it didn't seem to work properly. And like, you know, I don't know. So he's got this CIDR that's like an outside world CIDR. So allow anything from the outside world, but nothing from inside the cluster, right? So he's filtering out his entire pod network and then allowing everything from the inside world, I guess. But it's kind of really weird because I guess this is not even allowed because I guess you're not allowed to have a pod selector and an IP block at the same time. So evidently, though, this is the policy that was made. Matt and this guy were both able to spin this thing up and get it working. They had different results when they ran this policy, but then I asked Chris, and Chris said he created this policy and it worked. And it failed as we would expect it to, because you're not allowed to have this IP block with a pod size selector.
Can you scroll to the policy again?
Yeah, here it is. So
I think this is a valid spec because both pod selector and IP block are in different peers. Pod selector and IP block in the same peer is not allowed. So
what happens if I do this? VI.
The YAML as is, it should be allowed.
Should work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it works fine. So YAML works.
if you just for a quick test, I mean, what Chris here is mentioning, if you go back to your terminal, if you just remove the dash from the IP block, if you open the p.yaml.
No, now you all know that I was working on Windows stuff this week.
If you remove the dash from the IP block, the leading dash, the first one, the 2. Yeah. And if you remove the dash, yes. Now this is invalid. And that's what the validation will.
Yeah, these are separate. Okay. Nice catch, Abhishek. You're like the expert on the network policy YAML cardinality syntax for for peer groups or whatever. Okay, cool. So I'll update Matt on that. Just test this. Cool. Pod selector. So anyways, yeah, I'm just writing stuff. But what do we want to talk about next?
Yeah, so while you write that, Jay, I've put on Volt what the next cap that we should discuss. And I think that I'm just taking a look that just Andrew and Abhishek voted, and they voted in the node policy, cap, the node policy user story. So I wanna take a look into that and hear more. What do we expect from this node policy, and how can we make this move forward also? And why did you vote into that, Abhishek and Andrew?
I voted because I was curious as to what kind of use cases the community is looking at. Mainly, are we talking, when we say node selector, are we talking about policies that apply on the node, or are we talking about policies that govern traffic between pods and nodes? So in one case, the node selector will be in the spec.node selector, and in the other case, the node selector will be in the to and from, the peers. So which node selector are we talking about? And I think Zhang this morning had a similar question. So what is the more popular use case to solve here?
Okay, nice. So does anyone have any concerns about this, about the node policy user story? Jay, if you can open in your screen this one.
Yeah, which one do you want me to do?
That's in the Zoom chat.
Now you're putting in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so
Does anybody else like get so confused about where it's like Slack and Zoom? There's like parallel information coming into both all day. So, anyways, where are we at? What are we talking?
So that's the node policy. This is the document that Andrew created, like with the consolidation of what we expect from the node policy user story. Sorry, folks. So the idea here is to support like network policy between pods and nodes, and include like host level services like kubelet. And if I wanna allow kubelet to reach my pod either, I think that you also got some user stories, some issue about that. Jay passed in time in Slack, like asking why the node reach the pods, and if we wanna allow that or deny that. So I think this one is pretty tricky to create. the node policy, but I agree with Abhishek that we see a lot of that. Like I wanna allow my pod to egress to like a set of nodes, like Prometheus going to all of the nodes, reaching the scrape port, or like allowing a set of nodes, like my nodes that run my ingress controller. This is my case, like in my work, we have like separate nodes for ingress controllers, and I want to allow just ingress controllers nodes that running the host network to reach my pod either. So who wants to own this as a this user story, trying to develop it better, and then we can take it also to, I don't think that for this Thursday we can make it, but like in 2 weeks we discuss and take this to SIG network either to get some approval as another field in the network policy. We need volunteers.
I think the node policy one needs a lot more like thought and work before we propose the use case to SIG network. I think the services one is a little bit more clear. Like it's just a strict replacement of pod selector. Like you just extract the pod selector from service and then you extract the port information from there. So that one seems a little bit more straightforward, but the node policy one seems like we should talk about it a bit more.
Right.
I feel like the services will be a rat hole though, right? Like, because the simplest case for services makes sense, but there's so many types of like, right? Like once you start getting into node port, once you host network and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how we scope it. Like to me, like my assumption with that is like you're only referencing services as a selection mechanism of pods and their ports, but you're not really including like node ports, external IPs, cluster IPs, or anything like that.
So it's just a replacement selector, and then you're just
Yeah, I think that about the service, you have like some other things that you also need to think, like if we are allowing the selection of only services with cluster IPs, or like the headless, how are we going to deal with headless services also? But I think also that's less tricky than the node policy. But we could have
like you might want to put the word internal or something in here, or cluster IP or something in here, but.
Okay. I mean, I didn't think we even had to look at the type, right? Like it's just the thing that selects pods. And then from there on, like the behavior would be identical to if you just put a pod selector instead.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion there, but yeah, I mean, that sounds like an easy one then. I wouldn't mind taking it on. I just have so much going on, and then I've got, I feel like I need to go. I feel like I would like to take a minute once I get some time to play around with actually trying to implement my API change, just because I've never done that before. And otherwise, I feel like it would not be. But we'll see. Yeah. I have a feeling nobody wants to own this right now. Is that is that the consensus? Everybody agrees, but nobody wants to really own these two. Nobody can own this one because we're not ready yet, and nobody wants to own this one. That's a decent conclusion, because then we can poke people around and see if there's someone who wants to.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't seem like super, but it doesn't seem super important. But yeah, if someone has time, it'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I'll just leave a comment there. Needs. This seems easy to us. Maybe someone can.
You'd also have to answer questions like, would you select the service by name, or like, would you have a label selector for services? Probably by name, but things like that, I don't think we have answered.
Yeah. Well, if any of y'all have any friends that are looking to write a cap, want to make that jump, get their name on a cap or something, this is maybe a good opportunity. They'll get plenty of support from us. So please do let folks know.
Probably we can just announce this in like in the SIG Networks channel. We need someone to undiscap, who wants to undiscap and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, wait until mine cap and your cap they got merged, then we can like start working on this other two as a batch.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I feel like I'm comfortable, at least in the short to medium term, owning maybe one cap at a time, but I don't know. I can barely keep my head above water with the one I'm doing now, because I want to make sure I get it right. But I think after that it'll get easier, because again, the API changes. I want to make sure I get that stuff right. But yeah, maybe after that, Ricardo, it will be less work for us to do the following ones, right? If that's what winds up having to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think that's anything else? Or do we all just go home 15 minutes early?
I'm okay going 15 minutes early and finishing some stuffs here.
I think
Any other
Abhishek's
comments,
ready to get back to work, right, Abhishek?
Yeah, I don't mind.
He wants to go write some code. Okay. Let's get back to work, y'all.
All right, thank you, folks. See you next week.
All right, bye everybody.
Yeah.
What?
I was going to say that we should probably discuss if we are getting these like in slower cycles, probably make this a bi-weekly until we have some bandwidth again to discuss other caps. But I think that we are going, so far we are going fine. So probably revisiting the caps next week and having like a smaller, a shorter meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we could go asynchronous or semi-asynchronous, that's a benefit for everybody. I'm down to do that at any time.
Okay. Have a nice
Yeah,
week,
I'm
folks.
also okay to like, we can aggressively cancel meetings if, there's nothing on the agenda. Like that's an option too.
Yeah, I mean, just like if we are starting to become slow because of not enough bandwidth, maybe discussing about turning this into a bi-weekly. But right now, I think that I think we can keep like a weekly meeting and at least keep reviewing, because I hope that in 1 week or 2 weeks we have also Abhishek and Zhang cluster-scoped policy cap, and I think this is going to bring a lot of discussions for us. So.
Yeah, and I think there's some people that are maybe depending on the fact that we hold this, we're here, if they can come if they need to. So, that may be a little irresponsible, is that the right word, of us to, to change that cadence. I mean, and we all talk anyways, so at least this is the one time where we're all talking in public, and it encourages more of that. So overall, I guess, come to think of it, I really like the fact that we're doing this every week. But you're right. If only 4 people come every week, we're going to have to change it, right? Especially if they're all just from one company. Okay.
Okay. Have a nice week, folks.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, take care.